G'day, and welcome back to the second part in my Battle of Eckmuhl. This is the second scenario in the General de Armee 2 rulebook. Last video, which I'll put a link to up in the corner there, I covered my original table set out and my plan. I've been away for work for a week and done some thinking and reading comments, and I've come back and I've rejigged the table and we're going to crack into the battle. I think I'm just going to go over my original plan and why I made the decisions I did, and we'll look at what's turning out to be a better plan, let's just say. My first plan was to take the town at Oberstanding here on the French left. In the scenario, if you take this town, you get an advantage in the initiative phase, so that seemed quite attractive to me. I thought I had a good plan. You can see Grenadier's brigade there lined up. I had two supported attack columns, and my plan was to go down as quickly as I could, cross the stream and launch into the village. This was to be supported by 2 battalions from Gillies brigade, and they would come down and engage the Austrians just to the French right of the village by the gardens there. My reasoning there is if I tied up the battalion to the left of the village, I would have 4 battalions to launch into the village, whereas the Austrians only had 1 to reinforce it. However, after a read of the rules, you can only really reinforce a village fight with 1 battalion at a time, and they've got their 1 in the rear, so it was always going to be a 1-1, or it's always going to be equal number fight there, so I had no real advantage. My other part of the plan was I figured if the first 2 battalions got thrown back, I'd have a second column that I could throw straight back in the next turn, and I would just bludgeon my way through. But again, I've been to Scott's Check Your Leader channel, and he does an excellent tips for this game, and both him and Dave Brown, the author, maintain if you're going to have a village fight, you're going to suffer a lot of casualties and you're in for a bit of a grind. So I figure even if I grind my way through the village, I'm still going to try and feed my battalions through and out the other side one at a time. So it's just really not going to work that well. Scott was good enough to put in the comments another plan which involved going through the forest on the French right. Now, I wasn't overly keen on that because I didn't see a way of getting my guns through the woods and outside and deployed so they could support the attack. But I revisited the scenario map, and there's actually room enough for the French to deploy their guns in front of the trees. I'd actually put a bit too much in, as usual, got carried away, put too many trees on the table. So I've moved them back a bit, and I've managed to deploy the French guns forward of the trees to support the attack. The other thing I've done is I've extended the table by another 2 feet. The original setup I had was an 8x6. I've made it a 10x6 now. It just gives it a bit more room and playing space for the brigades to stretch out and launch their attacks and their defence. The last thing I did, which is a change, which you'll see on the table there, is in GDA2 when you're setting up for a 2-player game, you get to scout the defensive players' positions with a series of scouting rolls. If they're successful in 2 of these attempts, the French can deploy one of their brigades 12 inches further in the table. So, I mean, I'm only doing it solo here, but what I did is I rolled three opposing dice rolls, and the French actually won 2 of those, so I let the French deploy one of their brigades forward, and that was Barbanger's right down on the right-hand flank. So he's deployed 12 inches forward with his gun set up ready to go, so he's going to crack straight into it. I didn't go completely with Scott's plan. He maintained to launch everything through the forest and out the other side and straight into the Austrians. I'm not that bold. I've put Gillies' brigade out on the left and centre flank. I've stretched that right out to just try and skirmish with the Austrians and mainly maintain a line so that they can't transfer troops down to that end of the table and help with the defence. So my main attack will be Barbanger and Grenadier through the woods, straight across the stream and up there and try and smash Rizzi's small brigade. Pajol will stay off the pitch and he'll come on, hopefully to exploit any breakthrough or counter any moves by the Austrian cavalry to stop me doing. So that's the changes. I just wanted to cover it off. Again, if you go back and watch the other video, you'll get a better idea of what I was thinking the first time and how bad it was. I'd still like to have a dust up in the village, but I can see, that it just would be a slow slog, and that being the main attack would just eat away the turns, and I wouldn't get anywhere else. So it's probably far better to go in near the forest. Bottom of turn 1, I thought I'd skip through this turn. It's mainly going to be manoeuvring, I thought, but again, wrong. The Austrians got 4 ADCs. They gave them all to Razi on their left, because that's the brigade that's going to come under pressure. He gave his guns artillery assault, he gave his skirmishing line skirmisher tasking, and gave himself a re-roll. And he rolled a 2 and a 1, so he went hesitant. Gilly in the centre of the Austrian line also went hesitant, and Nestetter went hesitant as well. The only one that didn't go hesitant is the one I can't pronounce. Radovanojevic, the cavalry, but they didn't do anything anyway. So the Austrian line's frozen in terror as the French horde rushes on. The French got 3 ADCs. They passed all their rolls. They gave all their ADCs to Babeja. He put his skirmish line on skirmisher tasking, and he gave his guns artillery assault. And they promptly rolled double ones. They can't go low ammo on the first game turn, but they do give themselves a fatigue casualty. They dished out 1 casualty to the Austrian line over there, and the skirmish battle, although the French rolled a lot more dice and did 2 casualties on the Austrian line, the Austrians did well and did 2 in reply. And I forgot to add in cover. Never mind, next time. Bottom of turn 2, looking from the Austrian right, the Austrians got 4 ADCs. They put 1 here on Raziz, and he's shuffled his troops along, ready to match the French columns that are about to cross the stream. So he passed his. He got 1 for a re-roll and 1 ADC for skirmisher tasking. He also put his guns here on assault fire. In the centre, Grill didn't get anything. He's just formed 1 battalion up into column, and he's moved his 2 big battalions down in line. He's trying to leave a gap in the centre between these battalions in case he wants to commit his cavalry. Radovanojevic, he went hesitant. It appears I'm going to have to say his name every bloody turn. Over on the right, Nestetter got an ADC for a re-roll, and he started to shift his brigade forward. I think he's going to get a little bit aggressive, maybe go and redeploy and cross the creek if he can. See on the French side of the table, the light battalions moved up to engage the village in a bit of petty firefighting. The battalions have started to come down the hill. They're probably going to get a bit of artillery fire from the Austrian battery. The French guns have also deployed there. I don't know if that's a bit premature, whether I should have got a bit closer, but they're up on the hill, so they'll get the extra range bonus. Grandenu, he's struggling a bit. His lead battalions have come forward, but his 2 rear battalions have struggled through the woods at a slower movement rate, so they're a little bit behind. The French got 3 ADCs. He got 1 of them as a re-roll. I didn't want him to stall. All French brigades passed. And over here on the French right, Babeja has come forward. You can see his columns are about to cross the creek. He's got skirmishing, tasking, and he also got a re-roll. French got the initiative, and we're going to move into the fire phase now. French have the initiative. They're all first. They've got 4 skirmisher stands, brigade skirmish, and skirmisher tasking, which gives them 7 dice, but they lose 1 for the cover of the stream. They still get 2, which is going to take a standoff and cause the Austrians to make a discipline test. Rolled it 2 and a 1, but the 1 was cocked. 6, I think that'll unform them. So the Austrians, I'm going to reply with the Austrians, well, I've got the camera here. they've got 3 stands, skirmisher tasking and brigade, so that's 6. -1 for the cover of the stream, gives them 5 dice. And they're going to get just 1 in return, but that'll take a stand off the French. So the French are going to fire into the Austrian skirmish line. They'd like to put a casualty over there where that brigade's not, battalion's not shielded, but the first one has to go on the skirmish line. They've got 5 stands in brigade skirmish line, so that's 6 dice, -1 for the stream. So I keep forgetting. So they only get 1. The Austrians will reply, they've got 4 stands in brigade skirmish line, less 1 for the stream, so they're only going to get 4 dice. And they also do 1. Moving down to the centre left of the French line, we've got Gilly's strong skirmish line of 6 stands. So 6 stands and brigade is 7, -1 for the stream again, so that's going to be 6 dice. And they're only going to get 1. The Austrian reply will be 4 dice, and they'll get 1 as well. So the Austrian skirmish lines are outnumbered, but they're doing well, like for like. Over to the village. So the French are going to get 5 CDs less 2 for shooting in a garrison, so only 3 dice. They still managed to get 1. Skirmish line's on fire. Little gravestone outside the village. Little Timmy drowned in the water there by the village. So the garrison's got 5, but the French have got cover for the stream. Poor old Timmy's dog died. And they don't hit a sausage. French guns in the foreground there. They're going to give those large battalions a taste of steel. No, they're not. They're going to give themselves a taste of exhaustion. My God, that's two rolls for the French artillery, and both of them have been bad. So they get a fatigue casualty. Barbadian's artillery on the hill there is in range of this large battalion, Austrian battalion, and they get a roll 4. So they're going to give themselves another. The French artillery is on some sort of self-harm power trip where they've given themselves 3 fatigue casualties. So it must have been a struggle to get through the woods there because they're dropping like flies. The Austrian guns on the hill up there, attached to Rosy. He's got artillery assault and he's going to fire into these French columns down here. I think he'll pick the middle one. And he's going to roll a 7. So he's going to get 1 for the assault fire and 1 for his standard artillery fire. Just putting 2 on the column there. They're not quite an effective range yet. No bounce through, so they take 2 casualties. Right, that's a wrap for turn 2. Bottom of turn 3 for movement. It was rinse and repeat for the Austrians. They got 4 ADCs. They all went to Rosy. He gave a skirmish line, skirmisher tasking again, and they reformed. The French columns come across the stream there, or starting to cross, and pushed their screen back, so they've lined up with their infantry. Scrolling through, he gave himself a reroll, which he passed, and he also put his guns back on assault fire. Over in the centre of the line, Grill went hesitant, so he didn't do anything. The Austrian cavalry is still on reserve, waiting for orders. And Nester got a re-roll, and he started pushing his battalions forward. I'm starting to realise the stream is going to be a bit of a problem, because anyone that crosses it is going to get slowed down, and anyone that's defending it really wants to sit back and wait till they're in the middle of or over the stream, so they're not getting cover. The French, despite having no hesitant brigades, rolled double ones, so they lost the initiative. So the Austrians actually moved first, so they'll be shooting first. You can see basically the French have just started to push their infantry battalions on their left through the fields. They got 3 ADCs, they all went to their right flank by danger. Grenadiers managed to catch his real battalions up, and they're approaching the stream now. Barbanger's hesitantly put his guns on artillery assault. Jesus, if they roll another fatigue casualty, I'll be slapping someone. And the columns infantry started to push across. They really need to start hurting this large Austrian battalion, otherwise they're just going to get shot to pieces and pushed back across the stream. So let's go into shooting now. Austrians to kick it off. Austrian garrison is going to get 4 dice. They get 5, but they lose 1 for the cover of the stream. And they're going to do 1 to the French skirmish line. In the rules, the person that wins the initiative shoots first, so you do all their shooting, but it's just easier for me to film it with the cameras in the one place, so I'm going to do the French return fire. They lose 2 dice because they're in cover. They're only rolling 3 dice. They still do another one. So another one on the gravestone of Timmy's dog who drowned in the stream. And to the centre left, the Austrians are going to get just 4 dice because of the stream. And they're going to do another one. Should probably roll that on camera. Never mind. The French return fire, they have 6, so they're going to roll 5 dice. Get it right once in the game. That's anything on a model's cocked. Still just 1, so that's going to take the Austrians up to 2 there. Not quite enough for a stand to come off. Centre right. See the French battalions are closing in there across the stream. I think those large battalions are going to be a hard nut to crack. So the Austrians are going to get 4 dice there. And they're going to do 1. One more and the French will take a base off. And the French have got 4 in reply. And they're also going to do 1. The last bit of skirmishing is over here. The Austrians have only got 3, but they've got skirmisher tasking. So they're going to get 2 more dice. So they're going to get 5 in total. And they got nothing. Squat. The French are just rolling 2. Actually, the French aren't in the stream, so the Austrians should get 1 more dice there. Still got squat. French have got 3. They're across the stream. There's no cover. They get 1. Go, boys. French for the win. Right, Austrian guns are lined up with the French. They're still not in effective range, but they are on assault fire, so they're going to get a couple extra casualty dice there. I'll go for the central column again, and that'll be the same again. Repeat performance, but that takes them up to 4. The other guns are just going to crack off a normal round down across the hill into this infantry battalion coming up here. That's going to be an 8. I think that's also long range inferior fire. It's just going to be 1. French battery is going to fire across down at that Austrian line. and they're going to get 6. I think they're in effective range, so that's just going to be 1. Right, all eyes are on these French guns here. Artillery assault. Can they do it? Can they put another fatigue casualty on themselves? Come on, French for the win. Come on, boys. Oh, yeah, away. They're away. They finally got their act together. So they're now at effective range. So 7 at effective range is just 1. So they're going to put 3 on that column. Takes them to 4, and they'll go for bounce through on the land vehicle behind. No. Lucky escape. We needed that. We needed to put some hurt on these guys because they're going to start dishing it out big time. So that's all artillery fire. I think the only volley fire is in fact that line right there. So that big hairy Austrian battalion there is in range of the French crossing the stream. So they're going to get a volley fire plus a casualty dice because they're a big battalion. But it'll be inferior fire because the French are in the stream. Are they in the stream or are they across the stream? I think they're crossing the stream, so we're going to give them inferior fire. So they're going to lose fire discipline, but they're going to put one. They're going to put 1 casualty on. So French take a casualty, and the Austrians lose their fire discipline. And that brings us to the close of turn 3. A quick overview of the tactical situation before we chuck into turn 4. Over here, surprisingly, the French are whittling down the garrison and Oberstanding, but that's pretty much irrelevant because they've got no troops to throw in there if they get them down, so it's kind of a sideshow here. The Austrians aren't falling it for it either. They're moving their battalions forward. I think the French have got enough to counter it there. It's going to be who commits their cavalry reserve because potentially they could rush in there and do quite a bit of damage. The Austrians are having a bit of a time of it trying to get their brigades in order. They keep going hesitant everywhere where the French don't seem to be suffering from that. The skirmish along the streamline is progressing slowly. I've never fought across the stream before. It's quite interesting. It seems to me that you don't want to be defending it with your battalions. You want to sit back and wait till someone's halfway across it and start shooting the bejesus out of them. Over here you can see General de Armee's brought his battalions forward. The French guns have had a sad run of it. The first 3 shots they put out did damage to themselves, which was crucial because they haven't really damaged the Austrian line. And Barbanger's only a weak brigade. He's only got 3 battalions and he's crossing the stream. He had a good round this time. He's managed to put 4 on that end large Austrian battalion, but it could be an opportunity. I mean, if they go hesitant there, they won't get support, and he could get across the stream and into them, and they won't get a good volley off because they won't have time to reform their fire discipline. So it might be a gamble to put them on infantry assault and try and rush in there. We'll just see how many ADCs we get in the next turn. Right, let's carry on to turn 4. Well, unsurprisingly, it went badly for the French. Well, it remains to be seen, but they got 4 ADCs. They put Barbanger on infantry assault, and they gave their guns assault fire. Unfortunately, General de Armee and Gilly both went hesitant, so they didn't get the initiative. And the Austrians, smelling a plan, put Rizzi on, gave him a re-roll and left skirmisher tasking on So they've passed. So at the end result is the Austrians haven't gone hesitant, but the French didn't want to sit in the stream, so they decided to charge anyway, and they didn't have enough distance unless they took a fatigue casualty and pushed on through the stream at full belt. So they've come through the stream. The Austrian big battalion is going to give them a weak volley, and I'd say those skirmishers can shoot in support. Let's see how that goes. Wing and a prayer here, French. French attack could fall to pieces. Got a bit keen. So the Austrians are going to fire, 2 casualty dice and a weak volley. And that will give them 2 casualties on that lead battalion. That takes them up to 4. Now, I'm not really sure about the skirmish line. I could have this wrong. Someone can post in the comments. If I have, I believe they can fire, but they've got to target, put their first casualty on the skirmish line, French skirmish line that's beside the columns. I might just check that. Okay, it says the skirmish line priorities must target a charging unit, but I'm not sure if that means charging them or charging anybody. But they have 4 dice plus skirmisher tasking, and they're going to crack out another casualty, and they've rolled 6s, so that's a discipline test on the French line. That's not good. And the French are going to pass that, but they're going to take 3 casualties coming in, which is going to force them to roll an extra dice. So they're not quite warned. But the weight of fire is going against them. Okay, so the French are going in. They suffered 3 casualties in the charge, so they've got to roll an extra dice. So they'll roll their 3 dice. And that's pretty good. 2 5s and a 4, so they'll discard one of the highest ones. So they're at 9. The Austrians are sweet potatoes, I think. They're not unformed, they haven't taken any casualties, so they're going to roll 2 dice, and they're going to roll 10. So the French have got a column in support. You've actually got 2 there. I think the other one can move in. So I think that one was available to move in as well. So they've actually got 2 in support, but he's going to take a casualty for crossing the stream. So they're going to re-roll the 4 and get a 2, and then they've got 1 more re-roll. And they're going to get to 9. So the Austrians don't really need to re-roll. They've beaten them by 1. So the French column, halt and volley, unformed, defend to stand. So I think they get 1 CD. Because they're a column. Question is, do these boys also get a shot because they're part of the charge? I'm going to say, rightly or wrongly, yes. They all halt and volley. And they got nothing anyway. They got across the stream. So they got across the stream. They took a bit of fire crossing it. They've fallen into disorder. They're not very happy. So that's a monumental scuff up on my part, I feel. Over to movement. The Austrians on their right, Nestetter, just pushed his battalions forward, formed a line. I think he's going to get given some redeploy orders and cross the stream next time. I'm unsure about that, but that might be a plan. The Austrian centre, I just moved the column forward, not much movement there. One of the lines wheeled a bit to better face off about against Grenadiers approaching battalions. The French on their side didn't do anything. Both of those brigades were hesitant, so they just basically froze and waited for orders. And over here, we've already been through this debacle. So this French brigade has done their movement and they're cooked, and the Austrians have basically stood still. I think they've weathered the storm there. Over to shooting, the Austrians won the initiative, so they're going to start with their skirmish fire. I think we'll start down at Overstanding and work down the line. Right, the Austrian garrison going to kick it off. Once again, they've got 4 shots. And they're going to get 1 on the French. The French are going to return fire with 3. And they're going to get nothing. Moving over to the Austrian centre right, they're going to get 4 again. And they'll do a casualty, and the French will reply. And they'll reply with 6 dice. And they'll also do 1. So both sides will lose a base. Moving down to the Austrian centre left. They once again got 4 shots. And that's going to take a base off. French return fire. They've got 4 shots in return. They'll put the first one on the skirmish line, and if they get a second one, I'll go on the next brigade next door. They only get 1, but that's enough to take another base off the Austrian skirmish line. The last little shot here is the French skirmish line. The Austrians have already fired at the charging unit, but the French will get 3 shots. And they'll take a base off. Well done, boys. Good on you. Over to the Austrian guns. These boys here will have another shot at that column. That's no good. They'll do a fatigue casualty to themselves. The other guns here, they'll shoot at the centre column again. That's a bit of roll, 10. Not an effective range, so just 10 on an inferior folly is 1 in a DT. So the French will do a discipline check. Oh, and they'll fail that. So the central column will go unformed, and they'll pick up another casualty. They're on 5 now, so they're getting a little bit unhappy about the proceedings. The French guns are hesitant on the hill there, but luckily this glorious juicy target is in range, so they'll give them a shot and they'll do a fatigue casualty on themselves again. Oh, good Lord. So both guns are sitting at 2 casualties at self-inflicted wounds so far. The far guns under Barbaja, they're on artillery assault. I don't know if they can shoot at these guys because they've been involved in a combat. I'm gonna fire at these guys just to be safe. I'm not really sure. They get nothing with their artillery dice, but they don't get a fatigue dice on themselves. That's a plus. They've got 9. I think they're at effective range. 9 at effective is 2 and a DT. that's good. That's all good. 7, I think a standard battalion passes that okay, just. But the Austrians can have. The Austrians can have a bit of 2 casualties. So there's no volley fire. That brings us to the close of turn 4. End of movement on the top of the 5th. The Austrian line came under pressure from the French charge and it just fell to pieces. All these 3 brigades went hesitant. Grill, Nestetter and Radovonojevic all fell over. They're paralysed. They can't think. Holy no, it needs to sort them out. Over here, they gave all their ADCs to Razi, so he's kind of clear on his plan. He's reformed his fire discipline and he's ready to blast the French columns that are staggering in the stream. His guns are back on infantry assault, artillery assault there, so they're ready to pour some fire in as well. Despite rolling 3 extra dice in the initiatives and rolling double ones, the French, who only had 1 hesitant brigade, also rolled double ones. So I'll check. I think the Austrians hold on to it, although it may be French. Okay, so the French actually won the initiative even though they rolled double ones because they're facing Austrians. So they've got the initiative. The French part, they reformed their lead battalion in the stream and they brought the other battalion across. If they can just do a couple more casualties on that big Austrian line, they'll wear it out. Their guns are on artillery assault again. They're going to try and pummel the second line, ready for Grenadiers assault. But they're only sitting on 2 of that large battalion, so they've got a long way to go. Grenadiers closed up his ranks. He's come forward. He's pushed his skirmish line across the stream. They're also going to pour fire into that battalion and the skirmishers. I did start moving all the troops up over there with Gilly, but then I realised he's actually hesitant, so I stopped. So it's over to the French skirmish fire. All right, the French continue with their bickering with the Kohlberg battalion and Oberstanding. They're going to fire 3 dice and get nothing. The garrison's going to return shooting 4 dice, losing 1 for the stream, and they're going to get nothing. So set that camera up and go up for nothing. Nothing happened. Over to the centre, the Austrian skirmish line's getting thinned out here. French have still got 5 stands, so they lose their brigade skirmish dice for the stream. I've said that 100 times. I'm not going to say it anymore. They do 2 casualties on the Austrians. Ouch. That's got to hurt. The Austrians have got skirmish fire, so they're going to get 5 dice back. And they'll do 1 in reply, which is enough to remove another French stand. Moving down the line. So the French are across the stream, but they're going to split their fire between the 2. The first casualty goes on these guys here, and I would say that these lads are shooting through the stream, so they're still going to lose a dice. So they get 4 dice, they go down to 3. And they get nothing. Austrians are going to do the same. I think they have to target the skirmishers, but they do get 1. So they'll put 1 on the French there. The last skirmish fight is down here right at the end of the line. The Austrians have got 2 stands. French go first. They've got 3, but they've only got 2 facing them. They get 1 for brigade line. They're across the stream now, so there's no cover. And they're going to put 1 on the Austrians, and the Austrians are going to return fire and do nothing to the French. Over to artillery fire, the French guns. Once again on artillery assault. They have to target these boys here. 7. They're just going to get the 1, I believe. So it's just going to push them up to 3. Still a long way from hurting those lads. Further down the line, these guys are going to, the French artillery are going to once again fire into these guys. They have effective range, 11. That's going to hurt. That is 3 and a DT. So that's going to take them up to 4. French artillery finally finding their range there. Really? Good on you boys. Oh, they love it. They don't care. Right, the Austrian artillery just behind the trees here is also an artillery assault. I don't think they can target these guys because these boys are in the road. They can. I think they're going to still plug away at this centre battalion, see if they just can't completely destroy it. I think that's going to be 3. So that takes those guys up to 8, so they're really starting to feel the pain now. Lastly, these Austrian guns will fire at this column again. It's coming across. Oops, they'll do 10. 10's going to hurt. Yep, so they failed a discipline test and they take 1 more casualty, so they go to 2 and go unformed. So the last thing to wrap up the turn 4 is volley fire. The French are going to shoot in the columns. They really want to try and do 2 casualties to push this Austrian battalion into Warn. And they only gone and done it, haven't they? Go boys. You good lads. So they fired first and they got 2 hits, so that takes the Austrian battalion to Warn. The Austrians still going to do a volley back, but it'll be a weak volley and they'll get a casualty dice. So they did 7, which is the 1. They did 2, so that'll be a casualty on each French battalion. So unfortunately it takes this boy, bad boy, up to Warn. And this lad here should be actually on 2. He takes a casualty now and he pushed across the stream in the first assault, so he should have taken a fatigue casualty for rushing through the stream. So at the end of turn 5, you can see the French skirmish line is still bickering with Oberstanding. It's not going anywhere. It's 2 casualties apiece. The French haven't got any battalions to exploit it if they start to pull ahead. They're rolling less dice, so it's a losing game there for them, really. On the opposite side of the town there, you can see the Austrian battalions have come forward now, so that's kind of a threat. The French battalions are slowly making their way through the field, but they're taking a few casualties from this Austrian battery here. On the plus side, their skirmish line is whittling away the Austrian skirmishing line, but it's pretty much blow for blow, really. I think both sides have killed the same amount of skirmisher stands. In the centre, I mean, this turn, the Austrians on the side of the pitch, I mean, they all went hesitant. Radovana Donovich, what are you doing, man? You're not doing anything. Get your act together. Over here, the Austrians are holding up quite well. The assault fire is really dishing out to the French columns. Grenadiers struggling to cross the stream. When he does, he's going to meet a lot of pain. Unfortunately, the French guns, I mean, they've inflicted 4 wounds on themselves. So not only is that casualties against themselves, but it's opportunities missed of softening up the Austrian battalions. So here it's all to play for. Who sees gets the initiative. I think the French need everything here to get in. Top of turn 6, things have got a little bit crazy. I've outfoxed myself 3 times. So the French had a bit of a disaster. they only got one ADC. And they figured they can't just sit here and take endless musket balls to the face. The Austrian battalion's line is worn now, so that they've put the one ADC and given these guys infantry assault. So plan is to charge in here. Now the Austrians got 4 ADCs, and they ended up giving their man Razi 3. They gave him Post of Honour and Glory, because they figured what's not a better time to counterattack now, why the French are unorganised and floundering in the stream. They'd regain a casualty, take these off Warren, they'd go in, they've got support, smash them. And they get to re-roll one of their initiative dice. Of course, that's a perfect plan until the French beat them in the initiative and charge first. So the French are going in, not the Austrians. So I don't think they get the bonuses for now's your time for Post of Honour, but I still believe they will get Glory. So they're going to give the French a volley. It's going to be a weak volley because they're worn. Let's see what they can do. They can't do much. I would say that's 2 casualties, but it's 1 on each. The Austrian skirmishers will chip in with 3 dice as well, and they'll get 1 more hit on these guys. Wowzers. So the French will be rolling 2 dice. For this battalion, and they'll get, put them down here, they'll get, so the French will roll 2 dice and they got 9. The Austrians are going to roll 3 dice because they're worn. And they're also going to get 9. They've got 2 re-rolls, I think, the Austrians. So do they take them? I think they're going to, because if they can force the French to re-roll, they might pull this off. No. So they're back to 9. So the French can either go in or re-roll, and I think they're just going to go in. Hang it all, let's go in. So interesting. I've probably got that completely wrong. Someone will tell me. Exciting nonetheless. In they go. Right, movement for turn 6. Barbanger's boys have gone in. There's going to be a dust up there. French comms are pushed forward here. The Austrian skirmish line has been forced back, and then they moved across to engage that fresh French battalion that's coming up to the stream now. The Austrians also moved up their Grenza battalion to support the Austrians facing the fresh French columns crossing the stream. Centre right, the skirmish battle goes on. French have regained their composure and come forward. Nested is still hesitant, so he's not doing much, and of standing well. Less said about that, the better, considering that was the major crutch of my first plan. French to open proceedings here. Nothing. Garrison return fire. 1. The French are now slipping behind here. They might have to withdraw. They're also under threat from battalions coming forward. In the centre, the French are going to get 5 dice still. Actually 4 dice. But that's enough to take another base off the Austrians. So they're down to just 2 return fire. And that's nothing. Moving into the centre of the table, these Austrians Might as well shoot now at the turn here, 3 dice. That'll be 1. Well done. French here will crack 4 into that line. That'll be nothing. And then right down here in the corner, French will get 3 dice and do 1. Artillery fire, guns on the left in the foreground are going to try and soften up that line again. You're going to roll 9. That's pretty good. 9 is 2 and a DT. I like it. Takes these guys to 5. They're in a whisker of being unformed, being worn, sorry. 6. I don't think they'll like that. Unformed. Austrians coming under increasing pressure. The battery in the centre of the table will carry on trying to soften up the Austrians, and they'll roll 11. And they're at effective range, so that'll be 3 in a DT. And they'll also fail. So takes these boys up to 7 and unformed. So they're ripe for the picking. The Austrian battery is going to try and dish it out at this lead column, central column again. They're on 8 casualties, and they're going to roll 10. I don't think they're at effective range. It's going to be 2 in a DT. So it's going to take them up to 10 casualties now. They're extremely unhappy about the situation. Yes, they are. 5. They drop down a morale grade because they're worn. It's just unformed. Last guns are those ones way over there in the distance, and they're going to continue to pound this French column as it comes down the hill. Oh, wrong dice. Let's try the right dice. 7. I think that's just going to be 1. We'll take them up to 3. Over to volley fire, and this Austrian line right down the end here, it's going to give the column an inferior volley because the stream gives them cover, and they're going to roll 11. So even with an inferior volley, that's going to be 3 in a DT. Eight, they pass it, but they are going to pay a heavy price. So 3 on the French column there. Those boys there will shoot at the French column. They're only going to get 2 dice because they're unformed and they're worn, so that's a weak volley, but they're a large battalion. So they'll get 1. These guys here will pour it on. The French are covered by a skirmish screen. So the target skirmishers. They're not quite worn, so they're still going to get a full strength volley. But the first casualty's got to go on skirmishers. That is 2. So I think they'll put them all on skirmish screen and take away a skirmish stand. The French will not be shooting back, so all we've got left is this glorious scrum over here. First melee of the game, let's try and work it out. Okay, I think it's 5 dice each, this combat. I think these guys get +1 for Elan. They don't get the post of honour tasking because they didn't charge, and they lose 1 because they're on 6 casualties. And the French are on 3 casualties, so they're just a straight 5 dice. So here we go. Sweet baby Jesus. French for the win. It's a win by 1. Winner take ground, loser retreat unformed. So, The Austrians are going to take 3 casualties, which will push them up to 9. So they'll take 3 casualties, pushed up to 9. They'll get forced back through the Landwehr, and they'll become unformed. So they're an unformed mess. The Landwehr, because they got broken through in close range, will also become unformed. And these guys will push forward to take the ground, and these skirmishers will have to fall back. And the French will, I think it's only this guy that comes forward, take 2 casualties, so they'll go to 5. So a big win for the French there. Austrian line, crumbling under pressure. I think we'll close the video off there. Turn 6, into turn 6, my internet just can't handle the uploads. So you can see here, Barbage's brigade is making good headway. They had a good turn that time. The Austrians nearly turned the tables on them. If they'd got that post of honour out, they would have charged the French as they struggled across the stream. It came down to the initiative roll, and the Austrians had every chance of winning that, but it just fell to bits on them. Just not quite as organised as the French. So the French went in, won that one. They've pushed the Austrians up. The Austrians are an unformed mess now. In the centre, General de Armee is pushing forward with his battalions. He's crossing the stream. He's taken a bit of fire, but he's in pretty good condition, and the 2 Austrian battalions facing him, now that the French artillery have finally got their act together, they're actually starting to hurt. One's sitting on 7 and one's on 5, so that assault's really gaining momentum there as well. Over here, the French are pushing forward. I'm not sure they need to. They're not really got the numbers to get a conclusion with the Austrians, and the Austrians are starting to put mountain casualties on them. So, it's getting close, halfway mark. Next episode, probably see the cavalry get committed. I'm not really sure. I think the Austrian cavalry has to go down through there and hit Gardinou's brigade as it gets across the stream. I think that's the best shot at Austrian success. The French, if Pajol does pretty much the same, as it goes down between the guns and the battalion there and across the wheat field and smashes right up the centre there towards those guns on the hill, it might have a good show of really adding to the pain of the Austrian line. The French have still got 2 of their divisional commands up their sleeve. The Austrians have only got 1. Both sides have got all of their caissons in play, so everything to play for. So catch you next episode for the conclusion of Eckmuhl. Cheers for watching.